lot of people on that song, apparently. Diana Ross among them. Let's go. Oh, please, look at the big board. Why don't you? We got real close when the market opened this morning. Real close to 22,000, that is. And we're getting close again. Look at this. 21,980. We are 19 points shy of 22,000. And we're desperate to get to 22,000 because we really do have a nice, shiny graphic for you to look at if we make it right there. Who's with us? I'll tell you right now. He's the New York Times best-selling author, American Mojo Lost and Found. His name is Peter Kernan. You have absolutely no doubt in your mind that we're going to get to 22,000, do you?
We're going to get to 22,000. The world is growing. China's growing at 6%. Europe is growing. Japan is growing. We feed so many of these countries. We cannot fail to grow to keep up with that. We'll pass 22,000.
How about the mood? I sense a mood of growing optimism about the economy. Not about politics, forget that, but about the economy itself. Am I right?
The earnings have been there.
Yep.
The job growth is there. It's a little slower than we'd like, but it is there. And slow and steady and sturdy will get us where we need to be.
Okay, now, I want to talk about tax reform. That is the centerpiece of the growth agenda. And President Trump needs a win on this. You heard me at the top of the hour. I say he should barnstorm the country. Sell it. What say you?
The most important thing, and I totally agree with you, the most important thing he should do is explain what things like corporate tax reform mean. It means better 401k. It means a better performance in your pension plan. It means more jobs. Translate what it means to people to see a tax rate go from 35% to 25%, because it's not necessarily intuitive. But if you say, this is going to put money in your 401k, this is going to help your pension, this is going to get you a job, this is going to basically promote the growth of our business enterprises, that feels like something American people would love.
Yes, sell it. Sell it aggressively. There's nothing wrong with doing that, and I think he has to do it in the month of August. He's got to do it.
Well, everybody owns stocks, and this notion that somehow the corporation's the only one who benefit from a tax cut, he's got to get past that, break through that membrane and say, this is good for you, good for all Americans.
Do you think, well, Apple reports their financial position this afternoon, 4 o'clock Eastern time. We'll all be glued, of course. Do you think that Apple's profits, Apple's report, could push us well above 22,000?
You know, it might. This is a lame duck quarter in some respects for Apple because everyone's really focused on the next quarter, which is when the new machine, the new 8 iPhone comes out. They'll sturdily probably report something like $8 billion in profits. Very good, just shy of $45 billion. So they're going to do just fine, $13 billion in cash flow. That could take us the next little bit. But more important is, what are they saying about the next? What are they indicating about margins or revenues for next quarter?
I got to tell you, the numbers stagger me.
Yeah.
Possibly $45 billion profit a year. That's pretty close to $1 billion a week.
Yes, there's a reason why it's the most valuable company in the world, right? And that is because they generate cash like nobody else.
I think they may report this afternoon that they've got pretty close to $250 billion in cash.
In cash.
Cash as a reserve. Have you any idea what they're going to do with that money?
Well, the thing they have not done, in my opinion, is much for their own shareholders because they're letting their own growth take it. They're not big on dividends. They're not big on share repurchase. Everyone's waiting for the big acquisition. I think right now they've got great poise. They're staying where they are. Nothing is more demoralizing when somebody's spending tens of billions on an acquisition that's a dud. They're saying we've got a lot of momentum, and they're focusing on this iPhone 8. That's what they should do.
I just don't know what you could do with $250 billion.
Buy Netflix multiple times over.
You could buy anything you want.
And if you think about the borrowing capacity on top of that, they could have $500 billion just like that.
Just like that. All right, stay there, Peter, please. Wait for the hour. Thank you. I want to check the price of oil. Pretty close to $50 a barrel, 30-odd cents away. Yesterday on this program, we had a Marxist economist on the show. And he said Venezuela is unraveling, not because socialism is unraveling. Oh, no. He says Venezuela is going down the tubes because the price of oil has gone from $100 to $50. That was the Marxist reason why Venezuela is collapsing. Come on in. Stephen Schork from the Schork Report knows a thing or two about the price of oil. Now, I don't want you to comment on why Venezuela is collapsing. I want you to comment on the price of oil in America. Is it responding to the possibility that the Venezuelans will stop sending us their oil?
Well, yes. Right now, the rally that we've seen, Stuart, over the past week and a half is certainly correlated to the threat of the loss of Venezuelan oil. But let's keep in mind, should that oil go missing, that is to say, should the U.S. ban the import of Venezuelan oil, in the long run, Stuart, that hurts Venezuela much more than it will hurt the United States.
And American
So with
frackers
oil
would surely just come right in, wouldn't they? I mean, we got frackers who are quite prepared to pump as much as we need.
Yes, but it also comes down to the quality of the crude oil. So what we have to say is the U.S. could always replace the oil. Now, there are companies, Citgo, for instance, which is owned by the Venezuelan government, surely would be hurt by any sort of ban on U.S. imports. But other large refiners like Valero, Chevron, and Phillips 66 are in an extremely precarious situation because a significant amount of their heavy sour crude oil is purchased from Venezuela. But these are dynamic companies that can replace that oil from their other traditional sources. So in the long run, should that oil go missing from the U.S. oil, Venezuela will have to sell that oil elsewhere. Let's keep in mind the quality of the Venezuelan oil, it's essentially mud. So the U.S. refineries, being the most sophisticated in the world, are the natural buyer of this oil. Should Venezuela have to sell that oil elsewhere, they'll have to greatly discount it because of the lower quality and the longer tanker hauls that it require. Now, Stuart, here's the interesting part, which many viewers probably don't realize. The U.S. is also a significant supplier of oil to Venezuela, and this is really what the trump card is for the United States. So last year, 30,000 barrels of light crude oil was sold to the state-owned oil refinery of Venezuela to Curacao. Should the U.S. ban the export of oil exports to Curacao, then that refinery will have to go to West Africa to get its oil and therefore pay a higher price, again, for the longer tanker hauls. The United States also sold 75,000 barrels a day of petroleum products to Venezuela. Should those exports go missing, then Venezuela is stuck and will have to go to Europe, again paying higher prices for the tanker hauls. So Venezuela is in a much more precarious state than the United States are. The United States, when it comes to oil, are holding all the cards against Venezuela right now.
And we've got all the leverage. Stephen, that was very interesting. Thanks for joining us. Appreciate it. Thanks very much.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Peter Kernan, what's your take on the collapse of Venezuela?
You know, the real tragedy in all this, Stuart, is that if you go back a few years ago when oil was at $100 a barrel, what was it doing for the people of Venezuela? What did they do during all those periods of time when they were manufacturing and producing oil at this very high? They squandered it. They borrowed heavily. They're in debt up to here to China. Did they help their people? No. Did they do things with their hospitals or their schools? No. They had $100 oil, and they squandered. They have enough oil in Venezuela to embarrass the Saudis. They are swimming in oil. What did they do when they had peak oil prices? Nothing. They ran a Venezuelan socialist opportunity for Maduro and his friends to enrich themselves. They did not help the people. They were nationalizing things like the food stores and all of that. They ran their business and their country into the ground with record high oil prices. Blaming it on today's $50, where were you at